SpongeBob SquarePants, the beloved sea creature that captured the heart of millions when he made his first appearance back in 1999. With such a popular show on their hands, you just know that Nickelodeon had to go crazy with the merchandise. Granted, they held off for like the first year to try and maintain dignity, but as soon as that year 2000 hit, it was talking Squidwards and squirting SpongeBobs everywhere. Some of the merchandise they made was so damn silly. Like, why was there a wastebasket basketball hoop themed around SpongeBob, and why do I want it so bad? Basically, everything and anything was made about this lovable shaped man, and of course, that holds true for the world of video games. Nowadays, SpongeBob is in every single game that Nickelodeon breathes its grimy breath into, but in the early 2000s, he was really only in a handful, let alone games of his own. For a year or two, he really only had 2 games of his own: Legend of the Lost Spatula for the Game Boy Color, which I talked about a very long time ago, and SpongeBob Super Sponge for PS1 and the Game Boy Advance. Now, Super Sponge has got to be one of my favorite SpongeBob games. Top-notch music, solid gameplay, and dated yet charming graphics. It's a game appreciated by a lot of people, but one of my absolute favorite aspects of the game wasn't even a part of the finished product. It was the beta builds. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could you possibly enjoy a game based on what its prototype had to offer? But you look at the beta build from November of 2000 and you tell me it's not the best thing you've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen anything more beautiful in my entire life. So what you just watched there was footage of the earliest known public build of the Game Boy Advance version. This video is just magnificent. The unfinished walls and barrier, the janky movement, the absolutely nonsensical platforming. Oh my god, it even has a crusty 3D model. Taking one look at this game, not only did I recognize how similar it looked to the Super Sponge prototype, but I knew as soon as I saw the thumbnail to this game that this was gonna be something, and something it sure was. I wouldn't call this a horror game per se, but it kind of is, and also the creator kind of thinks it is as well. I don't know, just watch and find out. So let's take a look at the utterly confusing and honestly hidden gem of the SpongeBob fan game scene, Spongeman 9. The game opens up and it's everything I've ever wanted. I'm not even sure how to describe the level of scuff here. The mismatch of assets, the file options and help at the top left of the screen, the green screen crust on the SpongeBob model. This might be one of the most beautiful title screens I've ever laid my eyes on. I wonder what the help tab even says. Help tab? I don't think it did. The game very clearly takes inspiration from Super Sponge, judging by the models used in the game and the music playing in the background. Now, the creator has never outright said it before as far as I'm concerned, but there's a couple factors that lead me to believe that this game is inspired by the Super Sponge prototypes. For one, it uses models that look like they're directly from the prototypes, like with Squidward and SpongeBob. Oh, not SpongeBob, my bad. I meant to say Spongeman 9. My bad, Mr. Man 9, won't happen again. And another reason is because the game uses unused songs from Super Sponge's OST. It just goes to show how good Super Sponge's soundtrack is when even the scrapped songs are absolute bangers. Anyways, my little theorizing time is over, back to the game. Now, this game might visually look pretty scuffed, but is the gameplay itself scuffed too? Oh, you bet your ass it is, and it's beautiful. It's not necessarily the way he controls, it's the way that Spongeman interacts with his environment. Anytime he goes up against a wall, it's like he's trying to stick to it or just straight up clip through it. This allows you to do things like wall jump, which is super useful, but because of how janky the interactions with his environment are, sometimes it'll just fail on you. This can be an issue when you've got to make huge jumps that rely on you sticking to the wall, but instead Spongeman just sinks to the bottom. Oh, also, when you die, he kinda just keels over in the void. Ah yes, who could forget SpongeBob's iconic mouth on his head? Moving on, the first level is this strange blue rocky area. Throughout the whole game, you only play as the esteemed Spongeman 9, who just looks absolutely lovely. The red pants, the one white pupil, this is what SpongeBob's character design was missing. The first level is pretty simple, you just have to use these rock platforms to get to the top and reach the portal. Or at least I think it's a portal, I'm actually unsure, it just kinda looks like an ingot from Minecraft. Loading into the next level, it has the same rock platforms as before and looks pretty similar, except this time you're in hell. We know it's hell because that's where Squidward's at. We all know where Squidward's going, let's be honest with ourselves. This Squidward might also be based on the prototype model from Super Sponge, but I could be wrong. To try and confirm that the model did come from Super Sponge, I tried to do a little research online, maybe find some footage with this Squidward model, but instead I got led down this crazy rabbit hole of Mario 64 personalized content, but with Super Sponge instead of Mario 64. You remember that 2020 trend with the Wario head chasing Mario? Alright, now imagine that, but it's like Squidward and SpongeBob. I told you Squidward's going to hell, I mean just look at him. Anyways, back to the game. Interacting with Squidward, you get a little cutscene where he says, sorry if my Polish pronunciation is horrible, Spongeman nie lubicie. This translates to, Spongeman, I don't like you. Hey, at least Squidward is lore accurate here. After this, you're thrown into another red level with Squidward, but this time there's multiple paths you're able to take. As far as I'm aware, both paths lead to the same thing though. You can either immediately interact with Squidward again, or do a little platforming to get to this portal on the bottom of the map. This time when you go in the portal, you're teleported to a similar area from before, but this Goliath Patrick monster is waiting for you. Once again, not much you can do here, but interacting with Patrick leads to this for some reason. I have played hundreds of creepypasta games, and that is unironically more unnerving than at least 70% of them. I absolutely love the aesthetic that this game takes. I didn't touch on it a crazy amount at the beginning, but this game truly embodies that weird bootleg game vibe perfectly. The incorrect colors for the characters, the weird sprites, the strange inclusion of certain pictures. Not only that, but the game does it so well that it manages to creep its way into horror territory. You're playing this broken game of unknown origins, stuck wondering if what you're seeing is the result of its bootleg nature, or maybe something evil is even at play. Either that or it's a playable representation of that one video where Plankton takes Benadryl. Speaking of Plankton having a nightmare, you're teleported to this bright red area with Mr. Krabs next. He's definitely seen better days, but hey, he's still the crab that we know and love, see? That Polish word means money, by the way. I think it's spelled wrong, but you know what? Eugene gets an A for effort. After interacting with the crustacean, you're faced with a similar level to Squidward's. Like that level, you can either choose to talk to the person or platform away, but both lead to the same conclusion anyways. Except this time when you platform away, before you go on to the next stage, you see Mr. Krabs, tied up in a certain way that I will not be showing. So just interact with Krabsy and move on to the next stage. What the f*** was that? This next level is dyed a lovely bright yellow, as you now move insanely slow. I don't really mind it though, because this is without a doubt the scariest part of the game, and since you're slow to a crawl, you have to soak in every last detail. Oh god, not Patrick. No, Squidward too? What about Mr. Krabs? Oh wait, he's fine, he's just bungee jumping over here. Whew, for a second I thought he'd be dead. No! After walking past the nautical graveyard, you have to essentially condemn Mr. Krabs to death, as you cut the rope holding him, dropping him into the abyss. I'd like to imagine that there's no lore reason for this, Spongeman just did it because he was bored. Slowly trudging to the left after this, you can hop into a portal and proceed to the final area. This is probably the weirdest level of the bunch. Ignoring the lovely portrait of Beavis and Butthead that's in the sky for some reason, you have insane momentum now, which allows you to fly across the stage. Also, there's game gears on the ground that give you a speed boost, which I don't know why, but you know what? I'm here for it. I can't even pretend to rationalize why this level looks like this, which just adds to the greatness of this game. This level makes no goddamn sense. Zooming through the level and avoiding the giant pits, you eventually hit a large string of game gears, launching you towards a final destination. I'll censor it anyways because of YouTube, but a quick content warning for this part. I know it's a silly ass SpongeBob bootleg game, but hey, you never know. Once you get past the giant row of game gears, you're supposed to fly right into this rope that's accompanied with a crying gray SpongeBob. I didn't know this was here the first time I played this game, but in this clip here, I was able to hit the ledge right before it, so I was actually able to linger and figure out what was going on. Once you hit the rope, the game loses its shit, showing you a hanging Spongeman while a ton of noise blasts in the background, including Juice WRLD for some reason. This actually scared the shit out of me the first time because it was absolutely blaring in my headphones. And with Spongeman successfully taking both my sanity and my eardrums, the game closes and comes to an end. After going through that absolutely life-changing journey, I think I speak for everyone when I say, what the hell did I just play with my fingers on my keyboard on my computer? You know all those creepypastas where it's about some haunted game where everything seems off? I feel like this game is just a real-life example of that. Spongeman 9 is a very unique experience because I have rarely seen any other game emulate that bootleg feel to such a perfect degree, let alone one that attempts to elicit horror with it. Now, don't get me wrong, this game is objectively bad, but that's the whole point of the game. The gameplay sucks, it looks horrible, and it's confusing as hell. But in the end, that was the goal. It wanted to mimic the chaos and strangeness that those old bootleg games would have. Like, for example, does anybody remember that one Lion King bootleg where Simba would actually just kill himself in the game over screen? That's the vibe I got from this game. It is short, but I feel like that works in its favor. It barely gives you enough time to register what's happening, so that by the time you get a grasp, it's all over. I do wish that there was a little more substance to the game, but I also understand why there wasn't. But thankfully, there is 2 sequels that expand the game and lore to an insane amount. Wait, what? That is right. Spongeman 9 is actually a trilogy. The second and third game are still pretty lucid experiences, and the third has some crazy lore and other things baked into it, but the first one is definitely my favorite of the bunch, and that's why I wanted it to have its own video. If you want me to cover all 3, comment down below and perhaps I shall ponder the notion of it. I've got nothing clever to end on here. Actually, you know what? I have this vintage SpongeBob camera that my girlfriend got me a little while back, and I've literally had no opportunity to show it off. So you know what? I'm using now as an excuse to. Look at this thing. Isn't it cool and awesome?